Hello and welcome to the Oddschecker podcast. This is a Glorious Goodwood podcast previewing Wednesday, day 2 at the Qatar Goodwood Festival. I'm your host, George Elek, and I'm joined by two expert tipsters, two good friends, Andy Holding and Daily Mail tipster Sam Turner. Andy, your Oddschecker's very own. Sam, you belong to the Daily Mail, but together you have a little project that you guys use yourselves, Andy Holding, speedfigures.co.uk. Sam, I can't believe you let Andy only have his name on the door.
I know, it's shocking.
There's something worth people checking out.
Yeah, the trouble is he thinks that me and Andy Bate are his minions now, so we're the whipping boys. We're at the coalface and he's taking all the credit, George. This is what happens, you see. But no, he was the one, he got a pretty high profile, so we were happy for him to take all the glory.
So if you're interested in speed figures and all the like, do check that out. That's your plug, guys. Time for our plug. Just going to point people in the direction of the Oddschecker app. Please download the app immediately before you listen to this podcast, and you can follow all the races and all the prices as we're going through them. It's also just your one-stop shop for betting every single day across all sports. So you get the best prices, the best bookie offers, free bets, and of course the best tipsters across all sports, barring one who works for the Daily Mail apparently. But make sure you download the app immediately. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this podcast or you're listening to this podcast or watching this video, you will not regret it. Andy and I spoke on Friday last weekend to preview the Tuesday, day 1 of Glorious Goodwood. So if you haven't listened to that yet and the racing hasn't taken place, then it's worth doing so now. We're recording this at midday on Monday afternoon. So the final decks are in. The markets have just about reformed. So the prices we are giving you are subject to change, of course, but you are now covered by a non-runner insurance. So if you're backing horses any time after now and they don't take up their engagement, you will get your money back, which is very, very good news, I guess. Sometimes it feels like a winner when that happens. Right, let's get into it then. And the first race of the day is the only one at the moment where there aren't any prices, but we're still going to quickly touch upon it. It is the Fillies handicap. And yeah, I mean, there's not really much to say because there aren't many prices out, but it's over a mile and 2 furlongs. And before we move on to the kind of main previews, just want to give you guys the opportunity to flag up any horses that are still in who you think are worth keeping an eye on to see what prices they do open up.
Well, I certainly think from a handicapping perspective, Whaley has no doubt got in lightly here. I think if the handicapper's got a chance to do his sums again retrospectively, he might have given this horse more than the £3 that he bumped up for finishing second at Royal Ascot. She was unlucky to bump into a horse who's subsequently gone on to win a Group 3 contest over in France, Onassis, who is a very good horse and proved it twice over at Ascot. It's the second time now she's won over the straight mile. And given that this horse was, in the end, drawn away from the speed, it was one of those races similar to the Queen Mary later on in the week where the high numbers didn't quite dominate as they had been throughout the course of the week. It meant that she was rather left to row round boat up the stand side rail, and Onassis came over on the far side and completely dive bombed her. I think probably David Egan thought he'd maybe have won it near side, and all of a sudden he looked over to his right and he saw Hayley Turner flashing by him. But they were nicely clear of the rest. That the time figure was fairly good without being off the scale. But you know, given that the winner's now rated I think it's rated up there in the high 90s. As I said, off a mark of 87, this Whaley does potentially look well in. But I'm not going to tell you something that isn't going to be found out by the bookmakers. They're not stupid. She's going to be somewhere in around the 7-4, 2-1 mark, I would have thought, even though she's running against a nice horse of William Haggis's that won well at Newcastle last time out. And of course, Beemore, who's got a bit of track form and dogged it out quite nicely at Sandown last time out. But with regards coming off the back of a quality run first time out in a better race, arguably, or more deeper race, then you know you'd be hard pressed to look any further than Whaley.
Whaley for Roger Varian and David Egan. Yeah, as you say, off a mark of 87, first run since that good Ascot run. Sam, any catching your eye at this early stage?
Yeah, I backed Whaley at Ascot. Unfortunately, it's
so did I.
A fairly decent price. I thought I was going to be collecting. Unfortunately, as Andy says, he was a bit blindsided, David Egan, by Onassis, who's subsequently advertised the form. So Andy's covered her claims very thoroughly. A couple that I quite like. I mean, number one would probably be Beemore. The way that she travels through the race takes my eye. She copes with any ground. And there's one piece of form back at the tail end of last year where she beat Lady Bowthorpe and Mohaather, and both of those fillies are going to be rated in the mid-hundreds now. Well, certainly Mohaather is already rated 105. Lady Bowthorpe winning the listed race or good race at Ascot over the weekend. She's going to jump into that, into a three-figure mark, I would think. So Be More off 90 for a horse that's already won round Goodwood, copes with any ground, goes, fast ground, cutting the ground, whatever. And is well suited by a mile and a quarter, given the way she travelled through Sandown and really toughed it out that day. I think she's a really leading player here. I've got a lot of respect for Whaley. I've got a lot of respect also for Vizier, who was second behind Eva Maria when we last saw her at the back end last year. I think the Haggis team have got strong credentials in this race, obviously with the horse that won at Newcastle as well, Kozizaki. But I think I like Be More. I think I'm probably going to back that each way if it's that sort of price.
So take your pick, really. You've got Be More, we've got Gazayi and Waliak all being given favourable mentions. Sorry, not mentionable. That would make any sense. But into then the second race of the day. Getting my tongue tied already. We're only just getting going. But the second race of the day is the Unibet You're On handicap. It's the 145, and rejoice because we have some prices. And True Destiny, Oleg and Coeur de Lion are the joint 7-1 favourites at this stage. Summer Moon 15-2, the Grand Vizier 17-2, Sensational 10-1, 14-1, Bar 16 runners at this stage. As ever on the oddschecker app or on site, you can see favourable place terms, and William Hill are their first to stick their neck out, going a fifth to 5. I'm sure others will probably follow suit in the coming 48 hours or so. So Andy, coming to you first here, and what are you liking the look of in the second race on the Wednesday at Glorious Goodwood?
Well, I certainly think they've got the right favourite to start off with. True Destiny, who was third in the race last year, has done nothing wrong in his 2 runs this season so far. He's an honest horse. He stays well. His yard's in good form. I can't argue with that if you wanted to take 6-1 about him. We've also got Sensational as well, of course, was one place ahead of him behind Timoshenko in the very same race. And it's interesting that he's had a couple of not necessarily quiet runs so far this season, William Knight's horse, but they've been in races where perhaps he wouldn't have been seen to best effect. Soft ground, mile 6 last time at Haydock, wouldn't have been his ideal bag. That first run off the back of a big layoff behind Oleg at Pontefract was more in keeping with what he's about. And he might just go under the radar a little bit here because, William Knight still probably not in the sort of top echelon. But as we've seen with the horse of his that won on Sunday, he's certainly capable of, readying one for a handicap. Of course, Sabuska as well, another one who's been flying the flag for that stable particularly well. Actually, I was getting Jarvis and William Knight mixed up. Of course, the horse that won on Sunday was a Jarvis horse, but Sabuska's definitely his. I think those are the two to concentrate on. True Destiny, Sensational, second and third in last year's race. Even though you've got representatives from Ascot form, such as Coeur de Lion and the top weight, the Grand Vizier. I just like horses who've been around Goodwood, as Sam well and truly knows. It's usually the best place to start. Horses that have handled this track before.
True Destiny 7-1 with Betfair Sportsbook and Paddy Power. Best price, Sensational 10-1 across the board at the moment. Sam, do you agree with those two? Have you got any other ones for us to go into battle with?
I mean, the one aspect in this race that I seem to misjudge year after year after year. Well, I've finally woken up and smelt the coffee, but I don't like horses that have dropped a long way out, even though it's 2.5 miles at Goodwood. There's been some years, I think, that I can remember where those that are ridden aggressively, Lil Rockefeller being one of them. There's a couple of others as well that Mark Johnson trained that were very much up in the van throughout. It's a very difficult track to come from a long way back from. And I wonder, if Stanific does run in this, if he's just going to be dropped out and held up, because he looks a big price at sort of 14-20-1 at the moment. But I do worry about the fact that he's slowly away and doesn't race on the speed. Oleg obviously stays very strongly. Paul Nicholls had 2 runners in this race at the 5-day stage. Red Force 1, which Meg Nicholls was going to ride, and Oleg, which Holly Doyle was jocked up on. He does make plenty of appeal, Oleg, for a horse that gallops and stays very strongly, sitting off about 8-2 and something that's going to be ridden pretty handy. Obviously, already won round Pontefract this year. And Sensational, the horse that Andy mentioned, was was only 4 lengths behind that day, and I really like Sensational as well. I mean, nearly pulled off a massive upset in this race last year at a huge price. I think it was backed at 40s and 33s, all sorts of big prices, and he got beaten in neck. And I can't remember who put it up, but it might have been someone like Steve Mellish on Racing TV, or somebody was quite sweet on Sensational and got a great run for the money. But the fact that, you know, William Knight, who used to train in that part of the world, now moved to Newmarket subsequently, has targeted this race again. I think you've got to have him on side Sensational. So Oleg and Sensational would be my 2 from that Pontefract race. I'll probably just stick with that form line.
Oleg 2 from 2 since the Windop back at the turn of the year, 7-1, and Sensational. Both of you hoping for a sensational start to Wednesday at 10-1 across the board. We'll move on now then to the 2:15, another handicap, and we have Win O'Clock is the 5-1 favourite. Another kind of chappy race in terms of being pretty wide open price wise. You basically got 3 joint favourites again. Win O'Clock at 5-1, and Cypher is 11-2. Carlos Felix 11-2. Galentis 13-2. Mambo Knights 7-1. A Star Above, Sarvan, and Kozone all 8-1. Come to you here, Sam. What are these prices that kind of just come out? What's taking your eye?
Yeah, it's a really, really strong handicap. I say that first and foremost. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Sarvan. I'll let Andy probably cover him. Obviously, he works in close conjunction with George Scott, so I'll let him tell you all about his claims. Obviously, Glentees makes a little bit of appeal here, just given the fact that, you know, Mark Johnson's won this 4 times in the last 10 years, so he's obviously of interest. But the pin will probably end up on A Star Above, I think. Another horse of George Scott's filled second place in that Leicester race, that Leicester handicap that we've got a good speed figure for. It hasn't worked out particularly well yet, but the first 2 home were well clear of the 3rd, 4th and 5th, so it might not pay to read too much into that. And Star Above, I just loved his attitude, really. I love the attitude of a Claire de Lune. I mean, she lost nothing in defeat, really. It's an old cliche, but she went all the way to the line. But A Star Above just kept knuckling down and kept finding. He won't mind if there's a bit of dig in the ground either. He coped with that. He was a good winner at Thirst the time before, beating a horse that I think both Andy and I like, Stockbridge Tap of the Bethels. I just think off 83, I think that's a very, very fair mark, really, for what he's already achieved. And although he got race 7 for that Leicester win in a small field, I don't think that was too harsh by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's a very classy horse in the making, A Star Above, and he'd make a lovely jumper if he was ever going that way. But I'll let Andy talk about Sarvan, because he would obviously be on my shortlist as well. And, you know, he's the kind of horse that should appreciate the step up in trip, I'd have said.
Sam, you're doing my job for me. Andy, Sarvan, fill us in.
Yeah, George has always liked this fellow. His work early on in the season was very good. Couldn't wait to get him going. He ran him over a mile first time out behind King Leonidas. That was a good run. And he went back to the track next time out just to see if he'd improved off that run, and he had. He should have won, really. It was a bit of a stop-start race. The figure wasn't great. Harry just got caught out by Harry Bentley. That is, got caught out by Spectrum of Light, who got first run in the hands of Brett Doyle, and has subsequently gone on to run a really good race beyond a horse called Wise Glory over on the July course. But the horses in behind haven't exactly let the form down either, and let alone the winner. Not only Sarvan gone on to win at Pontefract next time out, Tenbury Wells, the 4th, has won twice since, Chelmsford and Ascot. Whisper Not won by half the length of a cricket pitch the other day at Pontefract. In fact, the full length of a cricket pitch.
And was well back to do so, wasn't it?
Was very well back to do so. And he went to Pontefract next time out, again to further his education. He got given a mark of 79 up to that point. Unfortunately, he went and beat Crystal Pegasus, who was rated 89. And that therefore he's gone up sort of £13 to now 92. But the sort of nuts and bolts of the horse, without taking into consideration the weights and measures and what he's rated, he is a thoroughly progressive colt going the right way, who's got plenty of size and substance about him. He stays well. He's got a good handy turn of foot as well. His sectional times that day were in keeping with the 5 furlong, 6 furlong sprinters from 2 out. So he's got a little bit of everything, really. And if they go quite quick here, it'll help him settle, I'd imagine, you know, the usual battalions from the Johnson stable will make sure it's a good gallop, along with Mambo Knights as well, who certainly not going to die not knowing from the front. This could just play into his strengths, and I think whatever beats Sarvan will probably win, because he's definitely one of George's best handicappers going forward. And I've got great amount of respect for a star above. But put it this way, if Sarvan and Eclair de Lune were in a foot race at home, there's only one winner. So you'd like to think that he'd have a star above covered. Mambo Knights, like I say, I like him a lot. But yeah, it's at 8-1. Sarvan probably would be one of the best bets on the card on day 3 for me. Sorry, day 2.
There you have it. Sarvan 8-1. That is currently with Betfair Sportsbook, Paddy Power, and Unibet. When Andy speaks, though, those prices normally don't stick around. So fingers crossed you're getting on this nice and early, and you can snap up some of that 8-1. I have a feeling come 2 o'clock on Wednesday, that 8-1 will be a distant memory. And just curiously, because obviously you've probably been looking out for Sarvan's price when the market did open, and it's only done so in the last kind of hour or so. Are you surprised to see him available at 8? So is that around about where you hoped he'd be?
Not really, no. I think George is still fairly low down on the pecking order when it comes to sort of bookmakers pricing up races. He's not very particularly a high profile. He doesn't have that amount of winners to sort of be bookmakers be scared of him. His ratios around about the sort of 12-13% mark when it should be a bit higher. And obviously he hasn't been at a big track yet. A lot of the other horses have been running against better quality horses. Supposedly, anyway, your Incyphers, your Glentees, your Mambo Knights, your Winner Clocks of this world, they've been at, some of the better gigs, particularly Winner Clock. He's been at Royal Ascot, so you could see why he's a market leader. But I say, ability-wise, he's probably slightly underestimated of what he potentially can do. So let's hope he can, take in a race like this and prove as good as what, we think he is. So fingers crossed anyway he can handle it, because it'd be a welcome winner for George. He was unlucky at this meeting last year. Mel Davis should have won for him, and he had another one in the 7 furlong handicap which didn't get the clearest to run through. So he deserves a bit of a better rub of the green this year.
Well, fingers crossed for George Scott, the trainer, that Sarvan can get up, and anyone who didn't listen to the Tuesday podcast should go back now and listen to Andy talking about Eclair de Lune, who's the other George Scott runner that he mentioned in passing there, who runs in the final race on the Friday and gets a positive nod as well. On now to the Molecombe, the Group 3, the 5 furlong Group 3. And significantly is the 9-2 market leader ahead of Sardinia Sunset. Interesting, though, because the bookies are very much torn on these two, where you've got Sardinia Sunset is 3-1 with Paddy's and Betfair, and they go 9-2 about significantly. But then you look at the other bookmakers, for example, William Hill goes 7-2 about significantly and 5-1 about Sardinia Sunset. So some disagreement to the top end of the market at this early stage. Steel Bull 6-1, Chief Little Hawk 13-2. Army of India 7-1, Wings of a Dove 10-1, 14-1, bar 10 runners at this stage. Andy, let's start at the top where you have those top two with very varying prices. If you take that 3-1 about Sardinia Sunset, you should be using oddschecker. That's all I'll say. But who would you have as the favourite between the two?
Well, I think Sardinia Sunset's the right favourite, isn't it? Based on that Queen Mary run, as we know, the race we've talked about at great length has worked out incredibly well. That fourth behind Campanelli's by far and away the best fillies form, and arguably all sex form up until now. She went on to do the job quite nicely the other day at York. Wasn't spectacular in beating Furlong Factor, who wouldn't be, in that bracket. But she got off the mark. And York's not the most easiest tracks for horses to be impressive. You've seen better horses than her go there and get stuffed. Significantly, his form ties up with Gussie Mack, and he's been unlucky not to win a race up to now. He travels well in these races, although he's stuck out on the flank a little bit here, isn't he, in stall 1? So I'm not sure that'll pan out. But there's a horse who's won recently, only 7 days ago, which I quite like. A horse called Steel Bull, Michael O'Callaghan. It's a very rare bird when Michael sends one over here. He's a very sort of circumspect trainer. He wouldn't just waste a bullet, just think, we'll have a social day out. Let's face it, nowadays it's quite not traumatic, but it's obviously with the difficulties with the getting horses shipped across the Irish Sea and all that. You've got to make sure that you've got a live one, especially running for 22 grand. This race would probably be worth treble that had we not have any prize money cutbacks. So it's more about prestige with this horse rather than the prize money. The fact that he's risking it and bringing him over only 7 days after he won at Nacy the day suggests that he thinks he's well up to it. And I certainly think he is as well. His time was good. It wasn't as good as perhaps some of them they've already achieved, but it was certainly respectable enough. His back-end split times were very good. And I just love the way he did it. He beat a horse called Denser Star from the Joseph O'Brien team that Sam will know well. And Denser Star ties in with lots of good sort of early season maiden form. He ran against the likes of More Beautiful early on in the season. So he's definitely a good yardstick coming into a race of this nature. So if I can get anything each way about him, I'll be more than happy. And the other thing about him as well, he's got a lovely run style. It's only one sample size, but he was switched off and he came with a late run at Nace off a stiff track. And I don't like front runners at Ascot. Don't like front runners at Goodwood. They usually get picked off late on, particularly in 2-year-old races. So with a nice quiet ride with Colin Keane in the plate, I'll be all over that Steel Bull.
Steel Bull 6-1 with Betfair and Paddy Power. Sam, are you going to tell me you're all over Steel Bull too?
Well, the figures I obviously produced for my work and also for the website have him right up there. He's only sort of a point behind Sardinia Sunset. So I was really impressed with his professionalism, to be honest. Denser Star had 3 runs going into that race. She was entitled to go and win that race and win it snugly. But there was a lot of money for Steel Bull. They obviously felt that they got a very talented individual. And I just thought he was very professional in attitude, temperament, and the way that he went through the race, as Andy's alluded to. So, he'd be right up there on my shortlist for this race. Taking on board what Andy says about horses that try and make all at Goodwood, I totally get where he's coming from with that. And I'd like to see Night on Earth ridden with a little bit more patience. But he was gunned from the gate at Windsor. That was probably to take advantage of the near side rail, which I could fully understand. He was very well back that day as well to step up on that previous run at Windsor, where he was easy to back 10-1 chance over 6 furlongs. So I think he's got loads of speed. He's blessed with speed. He comes out quite well on the figures as well. He's sort of 14-1, 12-14-1. I think that could be a fairly tidy price for him. So I'm going against some of those 2-year-olds who've had quite busy. We've really condensed this flat season into quite a small window, haven't we? So the likes of Sardinia Sunset significantly, Chief Little Hawk, Army of India, they've already had 3-4 runs, and we're only sort of towards the tail end of July. So perhaps something that's a bit fresher that comes here in good heart, and the likes of Steel Bull and Night on Earth are probably the most inexperienced horses in the field. So I'd probably have a split stakes approach with those two.
Night on Earth 14-1 with William Hill. At the moment, Oisin Murphy gets the ride as well. Interesting jockey booking on that favourite. Ross Orion rides Sardinia Sunset. Hasn't ridden for Roger Varian, from what I can tell, ever before. Hasn't ridden the horse before either. And you'd think, looking through the jockey bookings, I'm not sure why some of the other, bigger names such as Andrea Atzeni, who's ridden him before, I haven't taken it up. But
I don't know why Andrea's not riding, but I'll probably tell you why. Roger Varian would be and his form man would be quite a fan almost of, would be quite a fan of Ross Orion's riding, and Holly Doyle and 1 or 2 others. So they'll probably look to expand their group of jockeys. So I think that's probably the reason that they've chosen him.
Very interesting. It would be great for Ross Orion to win that group too. A budding young jockey. Moving on then to, this is possibly the race of the week. It looks an absolute cracker, the Sussex Stakes. We've got Siskin at 9-4. We've got Mohaather at 3-1. Kameko 4-1. Wichita 15-2. Circus Maximus 9-1. Vatican City 14-1. San Donato 25-1. A fascinating contest. Sam, let's start with you here. What do you make of the market and how it's opened?
I think the market's probably right. We've got a classic winner in Siskin, a horse that's got sort of push button acceleration. Obviously did very well to get himself out of several pockets at the Curragh, none of his own making particularly. So I thought that was an exceptional effort, and it was almost the first time really that he sort of stepped forward and registered a proper speed figure really, because last year he was winning and just doing enough in beating the likes of Monarch of Egypt and beating him up badly, but he was never really recording great time figures. But we saw at the Curragh that was a sparkling performance, stepped up to the mile, saw the trip out really well, and had that potent turn of foot as well, which secured the race for him. So that's what I want in a top-class miler. I want a horse that's going to really quicken and lengthen well, and be able to find that 5th gear when he really needs it to get out of a pocket or to put the seal on a race. And he certainly fits that criteria. And another horse that does that is Mohaather. who I think I'm just going to side with because I was just blown away by his performance in that summer mile. I thought it was a tremendous effort, really. It looked quite a reasonable renewal going into the race. I know we've got one or two sort of the old favourites, the Lord Glitters and Zarkis of this world, but God, he put them to bed in no uncertain fashion. And I like Marcus Dragoni at this meeting as well. He tends to gear a lot of his conditioning and training around, Glorious Goodwood or the Qatar Racing Festival, however you like to call it. And I was just really, really taken with that burst of acceleration. Andy will put perhaps more gloss on the performance with some sectionals or whatever, but the overall time was brilliant. And it's enough for me to probably give him the nod. He won't mind if there's a bit of juice in the ground as well. He copes with that. He copes with decent ground as well. I can't see it drying out that markedly by Wednesday. Conditions should be perfect for him. I think 3-1's very fair.
I should have mentioned at the top of the show, Sam, and maybe you can just tell us now, because we're recording this, as I say, on early Monday afternoon. There's been a fair bit of rain around down south this morning. How do we expect the going to be come Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, it's obviously difficult to predict, but it's supposed to be a dry week from sort of Monday evening onwards, late Monday evening onwards. So Tuesday, Wednesday, going through the week, getting progressively warmer and drier. There were 3 patches of good to soft on the turf tracks map on sort of Monday lunchtime. One around the 7 furlong mark, one on the bend on the inside loop coming into the straight, one between the 3 and the 2 with a little dip. So, I would say it's going to be beautiful racing ground. There should be no need for any water to go on as well. I know it's going to get warm towards the tail end of the week, but conditions look just about perfect to start a meeting with. I think if the clerk of the course could say, what ground would you like at the start of a long week, then surely this ground would currently be it. So hopefully there'll be no watering, because we know that can sometimes distort the way that races are run and play out. So fingers crossed, conditions should be very fair for the first couple of days.
Fingers crossed. And Mahatha, as you said there, 3-1. Andy, talk us through it.
Yeah, I'm and always have been a fully paid member of the Maratha fan club. It was a sickening body blow on day one of the Royal meeting for this horse not to win for me. It was 12-14-1, I think, wasn't he, in the morning? I thought that was a very, very generous price given his qualities, having run really well in the Kipco Champions Day on heavy ground behind King of Change. We know what he did in the green. I mean, he had to miss the 2,000 guineas, so he got a body of work to suggest he was certainly capable of winning a race like the Queen Anne. Unfortunately, as we all saw, he got an absolute horrific run through. And he got his just desserts for that unlucky run through by winning on the round track. Next time out, I didn't put him up, only because he was sort of 7-4, 2-1. I thought, having backed him at 14s, I don't really want to be sticking up a 3-4 point win on a 7-4 shot and finding that he got beat at such a short price. But I was really pleased for the horse that he managed to win. And as I said, thoroughly deserved. And I just think he's just an amazing horse. He settles well in his races, which is great. He gives himself every chance. And when you look at this race, you think, well, what's going to make the running? Is it going to be tactical? Well, at least we've got Wichita in there, who made the running last time out. That might just force the issue. Of course, he made the run in the St James's Palace. So if they do go off a decent gallop and Jim Crowley can drop his head and relax him in the early part of the race, I don't think anything in this race has got a turn of foot like he has. And that includes Siskin as well, who got himself out of a pocket to win at the Curragh last time out. I respect a lot of these horses in this race. Vatican City didn't get a chance to do or show what he could do in the Derby. They tried him over a mile and a half. That didn't work out. And obviously we've got the Guineas winner in here, Kameko, who
back to a mile.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say he's the forgotten horse, but we have got to remember what he did to some good colts in the 2,000 Guineas. So this is genuinely a race of all ages. I don't think I've seen a better Sussex Stakes than this. You usually get one or two, and you can make half cases out for the rest. But I mean, Circus Maximus is not 10-1, and he won the Queen Anne. So it just tells you where we are with this lot. But yeah, Mohaather for me. I just think this will be his just desserts if he went and won a race like this. He certainly deserves to win one, and it'd be great for the stable and for the horse himself if he managed to finally put the theory to bed that he's the best miler around.
Andy, I'm not sure about you, but that 7-4, 2-1 last time looks okay when you're seeing him at 3-1 in a field like
the way
this.
He won. Yeah, the way he won. Like I said, the time is great. Sam's already pointed that out. Needless to say, his sectionals were great as well. He's just got an amazing turn of foot. He's a proper horse. So I think, fingers crossed, he gets a chance to do it on Wednesday.
Right, looks like we're all fully fledged members of Team Mohaather here then. 3-1 with Bet Victor is the best price available now. A bit of blue around though, 5-4 with a couple of firms and a bit of 11-4 as well. So you might have to be quick to nab that 3-1 price as it is at the moment. Move on then from what is a brilliant Sussex Stakes to Group 1 on the day on to the conditions race where we have Sprite and we have joint favourites again between three. Sprite, Country Carnival and Miss Jingles are all 130 joint favourites. Furlong Factor 5-1. And then Pelikai, prices ranging from 8-1 with Genting Bet to 3-1 with Betfair Sportsbook and Paddy Power. Another free advert, let's say, for oddschecker. And Lady Almathea is the rag of the race at 33-1. Andy, come to you first here. Another trappy looking race.
Very much so, yeah. I definitely won't be putting anything up in this race. I can tell you that for nothing in advance. If you gave me a free bet now, I'd probably stick it on Country Carnival. I just think her form lines are just as good as any in the race. She obviously ran behind Pelikai first time out, but she's improved significantly since then. Beverly Wynn has been well advertised, and she ran well beyond Sardinia Sunset. So we get a chance to look at that form line. For instance, if the varying horse wins or runs well early on in the day, that'll certainly boost the chances of David Almira's horse. And the yard's in great nick at the moment, the Almira camp. So yeah, she'd be my tentative pick, but Sam might have a better or stronger view than I have anyway.
Do you, Sam?
Not especially, but I was quite taken with Sprite at York. I thought that was a really, really sparkling performance. She showed plenty of boot that day. I don't think the drop back to 5 will be an inconvenience for her, to be honest. I know she has got a run style where she's going to go forward, and that might compromise what we've said earlier on in the pod about front runners on the straight track there. But, it's a small field. At least she's not stuck down the rail. That hasn't necessarily been the place to be in what we've seen so far there. So, it like Andy, it's not a race I'm particularly dogmatic about. So I'll have to put a selection up, but whether I'd have a bet or not would be open to question, really.
Sprite 100-30 getting a positive mention, as does Country Carnival at the same price. I can nearly let you guys go and enjoy the day's racing today on the Monday. But before I can let you go, we're just going to touch again on the final race of the day, the Theo Fennell handicap, where there are currently 20 still in. We don't have any prices as it stands, so I'm asking you again just to flag up or maybe just put a circle around one or two to keep an eye on. Andy, come to you first.
Yeah, I'll probably have a short list of 3. The first of them on the top of them, sort of quality-wise, would be Society Lion. I think that Doncaster race that he ran in is a very good one, albeit it didn't work out yesterday for my column because I put up the second and the third, Tiger Crusade. They both ran well in defeat, Tiger Crusade and Jumeirah Bay, particularly Jumeirah Bay. He's definitely going down into the following over a cliff horse category. But Intrinsic Bond won on Friday, so it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. But either way, I think he's quite well handicapped off 91. Don't forget he beat Mishriff in a Yarmouth maiden last season when he was 5th that day. So he's definitely potentially well handicapped. But he's gone and bagged stall 16, which is not ideal. Another one who's got a double figure draw. I caught my eye last time out at Yarmouth was Mr. Snowden. I like the way he travelled into that race. He was just outrun by a horse who just quickened up better than him on the day. But I think 7 furlongs will end up being his trip. And the one absolute dead 7 furlong horse is Arigato, who of course ran really well in the Bunbury Cup. That Bunbury Cup was just chock full of horses that had been there, seen it and done it, and there was several improvers in there. I didn't think he did anything wrong, and he's got the best of the draw in stall 1, albeit he might just get boxed in on the inside. But those are the 3 I'd be looking at anyway at this early stage.
Arigato drawn 1 and Mr. Snowden drawn 13, making up Andy's shortlist. Sam?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. Dirty Rascal managed to win this race last year. Looks to have been brought along with a similar plan in mind. Has dropped to 87, so been given £7 back by the handicapper. Tom Marquand booked nice low draw as well in 4. They can win from a wide berth here. There's a couple of horses. Pastoral Player, he's won from wide. Magic City's won from double figure draw. So it's not an absolute death knell. The other interesting one for me is Toro Strike. Hashim Murphy riding for Richard Fahey. That's a good combination. I thought he ran really well in the Britannia behind Calusi. He was 66-1 that day and just kept galloping on. I thought that was a fair enough effort. Got form round here as well. So 2 positives there for me at prices.
Toro Strike and Dirty Rascal. It sounds like one of you need to take the dog for a walk.
Probably me. The dogs are barking for Toro Strike.
I think that's the perils of recording over Skype during the continued lockdown. I'll let you guys get back to it, but thank you very much to both Sam and to Andy for joining me today. Two brilliant tipsters who I recommend you should follow. You can find Sam daily in the Daily Mail, and you can find Andy in only one place, and that is at oddschecker. So please download the app for the best prices, bookie offers, free bets, and the very best tipsters as well. That dog needs to go for a walk, or is it the postman? I
think it's the postman, isn't it, Sam?
The postman, yeah. Trying to get a couple of parcels delivered, but there we go. Let's hope they've got winners in them.
The usual Amazon delivery, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hopefully after this podcast, we'll start calling you the postman as well, because you're always delivering winners. We've done a preview for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. There'll be one coming for Friday and Saturday on Wednesday afternoon as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Enjoy the racing, enjoy Glorious Goodwood, and please gamble responsibly.